Since the inception of Formula One in the 1950s, we've witnessed some magical moments and unreal achievements over the course of the 1,000 plus races that have been held. However, some things are so rare and iconic that they only ever happened once. From a 6-car race to a backward circuit and the Grand Prix without a single completed lap. Join us in today's video as we dig into the archives and reveal the 10 strangest and most iconic moments that only ever happened once in the history of F1. Let us know in the comments if you witnessed any of these events live and which is your favourite. Number 10. A 17-year-old racing in F1. Current world champion Max Verstappen wrote his name in the history books when he made his debut in Formula One at the Australian Grand Prix in 2015. The tenacious racer became the youngest driver to start an F1 at 17 years and 166 days old, smashing the previous record held by Jaime Alguersuari, who raced at the 2009 Hungarian Grand Prix at the age of 19 years and 126 days. Interestingly, two current F1 drivers, Stroll and Lando Norris, also broke Jaime's record in 2017 and 2019, respectively. But so far, Max Verstappen's record remains unmatched. And even though he suffered a DNF in that first race, he has gone on to justify his early introduction to the sport. Last season, he dethroned the legendary Lewis Hamilton to win his first ever Drivers' Championship title, and he's favourite to claim the prize again this season. Number 9. 50 races without a point. Formula One has seen many bad drivers over the years. But of all of the 777 drivers who have raced on the F1 track, none have been as poor as Luca Badoer in terms of scoring points. Interestingly, the Italian showed huge promise as a rookie, winning the 1992 F3 Championship, but couldn't replicate the same form in Formula One. You could argue that he largely raced for poor teams, which most times don't offer the best machinery to score points. But Badoer had a couple of close calls. Perhaps his best chance of scoring points came in the 1999 European Grand Prix, but unfortunately he was denied by a gearbox failure. The Italian was left in tears. He got another chance in 2009 when he was a stand-in driver for Ferrari's Felipe Massa, but he couldn't make the most of the opportunity, and unfortunately his racing career ended pointless. Till date, Luca Badoer holds the record for the most Grand Prix starts, 50, and the most race laps completed, 2,364 in F1, without scoring a single point. Number 8. Finishing 24th in a race. Another race driver who didn't score many points during his time on the track was Narain Karthikeyan. However, the Indian driver experienced the lowest points of his 46-race Formula One career when he qualified and finished 24th in the 2011 European Grand Prix held in Valencia. Nowadays, only 20 teams compete in the F1, but at the time there was a massive number of new teams who joined the sport, and unfortunately for Karthikeyan, he chose to lead the pack in reverse. Despite his poor record, Karthikeyan did have some good moments in his career. He was crowned champion at the 1994 British Formula Ford Winter Series and the 1996 Formula Asian Championship. Unlike Badoer, who had a pointless racing career, Narain Karthikeyan had 5 points to his name when he retired from the sport in 2012. But, based on the current situation, it looks like his 24th place finish at the European Grand Prix in 2011 will stand undefeated for a long time to come. Number 7. A backward circuit. The coronavirus pandemic forced organisers of several sporting events to make unprecedented changes to their calendars, and Formula One wasn't any different. With the FIA struggling to organise a race after the lockdown, there were suggestions that some circuits could run in reverse. However, the idea was eventually dismissed due to safety concerns. But we've actually seen scenarios where races have been held on reverse versions of tracks. For example, the Albert Park Street Circuit hosted a couple of non-championship races in reverse in the 1950s, and the Riverside International Racecourse in Los Angeles was run in reverse for a midget race. But officially, the 1954 Argentine Grand Prix remains the only championship race held in reverse. Number 6. No racing laps in a Grand Prix. Bad weather is arguably the biggest threat to any Formula One race, and quite a number of racing laps have been cancelled for this reason in the past. But something strange happened at the rain-shortened 2021 Belgium Grand Prix. For the first time ever in the history of the sport, a World Championship race was held without a single lap at speed. After a couple of start and stop sessions behind the safety car, the race was called off and decided based on the driver's position behind the safety car, with half points awarded. Max Verstappen returned back to the pit as the winner. George Russell, who drove for Williams at the time, came in second, and Lewis Hamilton finished third. The rest of the grid basically finished where they had qualified. Number 5. A full season not qualifying. Back in the day, the pre-qualifying session in F1 were held on Friday mornings. But no matter how hard they tried, some drivers just couldn't get into their groove in the morning. Gabriele Tarquini was one of such drivers. The Italian racer went on a streak of 25 races without pre-qualifying. That remains a Formula One record even till this day. Interestingly, Aguri Suzuki went a whole season without pre-qualifying in 1989 while driving for Zach Speed. Number 4. A 6-car race. At the start of the 2005 season, the FIA introduced a new rule restricting drivers to a single set of tyres for qualifying and the race proper. Initially, the rule favoured the Michelin teams like McLaren, Toyota, Williams and Renault, as cars with Bridgestone tyres like Ferrari, Jordan and Minardi struggled to adapt. But the US GP saw a twist of events, and the Michelin tyres that have been reliable all season suddenly became inefficient. The early signs arrived on Friday morning when Toyota's third driver, Riccardo Zonta, spun out of the track and lost his left rear Michelin tyre. But it kind of went under the radar until Ralf Schumacher suffered a heavy crash around turn 13 in FP2. Consequently, all Michelin cars on the grid opted not to race, as only 6 cars from Jordan, Ferrari and Minardi took the track in Indianapolis. Michael Schumacher crossed the finish line ahead of his teammate Rubens Barrichello to claim Ferrari's only win of the season. Number 3. Double points race. Bernie Ecclestone introduced a double point system for the last race of the 2014 season in Abu Dhabi. This triggered huge criticism from fans and drivers, especially because Lewis Hamilton and his Mercedes teammate Nico Rosberg were set for a showdown. And the double point system could controversially change the final outcome of the championship depending on a number of factors. But thankfully, it didn't. Despite claiming pole, Nico Rosberg's car suffered a mechanical issue during the race, which forced him to drop to the back of the grid. Meanwhile, Hamilton took the checkered flag to win his second Drivers' Championship despite a late charge from Felipe Massa's Williams. However, the double points race initiative was scrapped 1 year later. Number 2. Drivers racing in a key race they were banned from. During the practice session at the 1997 Japanese Grand Prix, Jacques Villeneuve set the fastest lap under waved yellow flags. But it wasn't just a one-off. It was the 5th time he had broken the rule all season, and he was consequently banned from participating in the race. Surprisingly, Villeneuve contested the ban and was allowed to race under appeal. The Canadian racer secured a 5th place finish, but unfortunately he lost his appeal and was eventually disqualified. Number 1. 3 pole positions with no laps led. Italian car racer Theo Fabi clinched pole position 3 times in his career, but surprisingly he never led any F1 race. His first pole was at the 1985 German Grand Prix at the legendary Nürburgring. He spun his wheels and finished 8th after the first lap. 1 year later, he made pole position again, but this time it was with the Benetton F1 team at the Austrian Grand Prix. The result wasn't any different as he found himself behind in the first lap. Fabi regained his composure and raced into the lead again on lap 17, but that lead would only last 12 seconds after he suffered an engine failure. 1 race later, the Italian was the fastest driver during qualifying at Monza, but he was forced to start at the back after failing to get away in the formation lap.